So these are the materials we're going to be needing. So we're going to be needing a pattern paper, tape, paper tape, pencil, scissors. You need two scissors actually. This is a paper scissors and then this is a fabric scissors. You have to avoid using the same scissors for cutting fabric and cutting paper. It makes, if you use the scissors that you use to cut fabrics to cut paper, it makes it go blunt. So it is advisable you get a paper scissors and a fabric scissors. And then your pattern master, lining, the fabric that you'll be needing. You can use any fabric of your choice. And then I'm going to be showing you two kinds of foam that you can use, as in two sizes of foam. You can use, if you look at this one, this is half-inch foam. This is half-inch foam. So you can either use this or you use this. This is 0.75. 0.75, while the other one is half-inch foam. Yeah, so first we are going to draft our basic skirt block, and the measurement we'll be needing is the waist measurement, the hip measurement, and the length of the skirt. So for this particular client, we are going to be using waist 31, hip 39, and then the skirt length is 25. So to get started on the pattern, we are going to measure the original waist, but we are going to add to the hip measurement. We cannot use this original hip measurement because we want to add to the hip measurement of the original hip measurement. So it is now the size of the foam that we want to use that will determine what we are going to add to the hip. So now, for example, this foam is in size 0.75 inch. 0.75 inch. So now, how do we know exactly what we are going to add to the hip measurement? So now, the foam is 0.75. The foam size is 0.75. Now we have to times that 0.75 times 4. And it will give us 0.75 times 4 will give us 3 inches, if I'm correct. 3 inches. Why do we do it times 4? We have to put into consideration that, we have two sides of a skirt. Two sides. This is our skirt. Two sides. This is one side, this is another side. And we have the front and the back. So for the front, we add 0.75. That's for one side. Let's say the right side. So you add 0.75 for the front on the right side, 0.75 for the back on the right side, making 1.5 inches. That's for one side. And then the other side, 0.75 for the front of the left side, 0.75 for the back of the left side. That is another 1.5 inches. So if you add these two together, it will give us 3 inches. So whatever size of the foam you are using, just times it by 4. So it is whatever you get that will now add to our hip measurement. So for this size of foam now, since it is 0.75 inch, we are now times 4, it is 3 inches. So we now add that 3 inches to this our hip measurement. That is 42 inches. So our hip measurement that we are going to use for this particular skirt is 42 inches. So we are going to use the original waist, which is 31. We are going to use the hip measurement, the enhanced hip measurement. Let me put it that way, the enhanced hip measurement, which is 42, and then the length. So if we are using this half inch measurement, if you are to use this half inch foam, what we are going to do is the half inch, that is 0.5 times 4, which is 2 inches. So Adepen, this is the foam we want to use, this half inch foam. This is the foam we want to use. So we are just going to add these 2 inches to our original hip measurement, which will give us 41. Of course, I'm going to still use this half inch foam to make hip padding, and also I'm going to use the 2 foams, so you will see how enhanced you will see that it is the size of the foam that determines how enhanced the hip will be. So I'm still going to show us how the outcome of this after everything. But for now, we are using this 0.75 inch foam. So now, since our waist measurement is 31, we now divide that 31 by 4. 31 divided by 4 will give us 7.5. That 7.5, we are now going to add 2 inches to it. It is 2 inches on the waist, because 1 inch for the sewing allowance and then 1 inch for the dart. Note that you are adding only dart allowance to the waist side. So 1 inch for the sewing allowance and then 1 inch for the dart. And 31 divided by 4 is 7.5, plus 2 inches will give us 9.5. So we are measuring 9.5 on the waistline. When you are drafting your pattern, you have to also mark your hip line. It is on this your hip line that your hip measurement will be taken. So you can take the measurement of this hip line on your client. That is by measuring from the waist to the hip. Mostly the standard is 8 inches. So you can just measure 8 inches from your waistline on the pattern paper. But it is better you take the measurement on the client, because there are some people whose hip and butt falls a little bit below normal. So it is better you take the measurement on the client rather than just guessing. But it is mostly between 8 and 9 inches. So mark it on your pattern paper, and also you mark 2 inches above your hip line. This 2 inches above your hip line is where your dart will stop. That is where your dart will stop. So you see, if you look at the what is it called very well, you will see that it is 2 lines that is there. One is this one, for this particular one, it is 6 inches and 8 inches. So the 6 inches, on the 6 inches I wrote upper hip there, and on the 8 inches I wrote lower hip there. On this 8 inches is where you are going to take your hip measurement. So on the 8 inches line, which is your lower hip, is where you are going to take your hip measurement. And in this case now, our hip measurement is, the enhanced hip measurement is 42. 42 divided by 4 will give us 10.5. That 10.5 plus 1 inch, that 1 inch is our sewing allowance, which gives us 11.5 inches. So you mark 11.5 inches on your pattern, and you use that curved part on your pattern master to connect from that mark that you make on your waistline to your hip line. And then, because we are making a pencil skirt, since we are first making a skirt block, I didn't measure the skirt length. The skirt length is 25. whatever we measure here, we are bringing it down. And here we measure 13 inches. So we are bringing it down here. We also measure 13 inches. So now we measure it all through. We measure it on different points so that it will give us a straight line, a perfect straight line. So this is our front. Now let's do our back. So for our back, we have to measure the largest part on this our front, and the largest part is the 13 inches. So we bring it here and measure 13 inches. We can add half inch to it just to give it a little space so that by the time we are covering our hip, it's not going to enter into the front. So 13 inches plus half inch. So from there we are going to do our zipper. So this is the center back. So now on this point, on this line, we are going to now add 1 inch allowance to it. That allowance is our zipper allowance. This is our zipper allowance. So what we measured on the waistline for the front, what we measured on the waistline for the front is what we are going to measure on the waistline for the back, and also on the hip line, and also on the hem line. So we measured 13 inch, 10.25 here. We're also measuring 10.25. And note that I'm not measuring from here, I'm measuring from the line inside, because this one is only our zipper allowance. That's our zipper allowance. So whatever measurement we are taking from here, not here. So we are measuring our waist, which is 10.25, our hip, which is 13 inches, and then we also bringing it down and still measure 13 inches. We're now going to connect all these points. Don't forget, to connect our hip to our waistline to our hip line, we are using this curved part here. So we place it this way. Please take note of the way I'm placing the pattern master. So we now graft our darts. To get our darts, for the front dart, we have to use our bust point to get our front dart. Our bust point to bust point, that, or nipple point to nipple point, whichever way you call it. So we are using our bust point to bust point to get our dart. And our dart is, for this client, it is, the nipple to nipple point is 8 inches. So divided by 2, that is 4 inches. So our dart is going to be 4. And then we measure on this our upper hip, that's 4 inches. We now connect the 2 points. So now we're going to draw our dart leg. Now to get our back dart, calculation for back dart is calculated waist minus 1 divided by 2. In this case now, our waist is 31. Divide it by 4, we got 7.75 plus 2, we got 9.75. So 9.75 is our calculated waist. That calculated waist will now minus 1 from it. We will get 8.75. It is that 8.75 that we will now divide by 2. And divide 8.75 by 2 will give us 4.875. So that is what we are going to use as our back. That as opposed the front that we used nipple to nipple point. For the back, we use 4.875. That is calculated waist minus 1 divided by 2. Hope you get it. So we now mark our back darts on our pattern paper. And don't forget that you take the measurement from the center back and you measure it the same way we measured from the on the front pattern. The same way we are going to measure it on the back. So another thing that we have to do before we move ahead is our shape, especially on our waistline, is not really straight. It is not a straight line. So there's kind of curve here that we're going to now form. So from our waistline here, we come down by 0.5 and then we connect it. We connect this point to this point. So with this, we've drafted our skirt block, but we are making a pencil skirt, and this is not a pencil skirt. It is not even anything close to a pencil skirt. This is just a block, and this is the front view. Let me label it. So we are now going to draft from this block. We are now going to draft our pencil skirt. So how do we go about that? So from the point where our pencil is going to form on our skirt, on that point it is normally, or let me say what I use is from our waistline, we measure 20 inches. 20 inches from the waistline. I call it line 20. So it is from that your line 20 that you now form your pencil will be formed. So now let's connect. To now get this our pencil skirt, what we are going to do now is our original hip measurements without adding the enhancement measurements. The original hip measurement, which is 39, will now be divided by 4. That will give us 9.75. So it is this exact 9.75 that we are going to measure on our line 20. I'll take that again. The original hip measurement of the client, which is 39, divide it by 4, which is 9.75, is what we are going to measure on our line 20 without adding any allowance at all. So that measurement is what is going to give us our penciled skirt. Mark the 9.75 on your line 20. Mark the 9.75 and then connect it to that your hip line measurement. You connect the two together. So whatever you measure on your line 20, you bring it down to your hemline. That is, as we measured 9.75 on our line 20, we also measure 9.75 on our hemline, and we connect it. You connect it like that. So everything that we did to the front here, we now do it the same to the back. That is, we measure what we measured on our line 20 for the front, we measure on the line 20 for the back, and we do the same for the hemline too. And whatever measurement you are going to take on the back, make sure you are measuring from the center back and not from the side of the back. Hope you understand me. Make sure you are measuring from the center back. So now connect from your hip line to whatever you got for your pencil measurements. So this is our pencil skirt, the enhanced version of our pencil skirt. Now let's cut our pattern. To avoid bulging on this lower part of your skirt, I don't know if you've noticed or if you've made any dress for anybody or any skirt or whatever, and you notice that at the center part it's used to it's not firm on the body. So to avoid all those and because this is a pencil skirt, there's what we call back shaping. You have to do the back shaping here. And if you notice also at the center back, at the waistline of the back, it also bulges. That's when you see that some people's dresses, the zipper part will be folding to avoid all those of things. It will have a professional touch. From this your waistline for the back, you now come in by 0.75 here. This point on this 0.75 points where you measure, you now connect it to this our upper lip line. That is for that zipper part. So for this lower part now, to avoid so that it will be firm on the body, you now come down from this hip line, you come down by 1 inch, and then you connect this point to this your line 20 points. So now wash the way I cut. This is our drafted pattern for our skirt that we are now going to use for our hip padding. This is the front and this is the back. Now that our pattern is ready, this our dart, see this our dart, you can decide to leave it this way and then you sew it on the fabric. You mark it out and sew it on the fabric, or you can decide to close your dart. Watch the one. I usually like closing my, especially for skirts like this, I close my darts. So I'm going to show you how you can close your darts now. Just cut. Take paper tape. Then we place this on top of this just to cover the dart totally. It will not be seen at all. That's how you close your darts. Back as well. place. Now let's close the front dart. Note that I am cutting from the dart leg that falls on the side, not on the center. I'm cutting the dart leg that falls on the side, not on the center. So now place this on top of this. So now we are cutting. Leave 2 inches for the hem folding, 2 inches. And then you pin down. This piece cannot totally lie flat because we close our dart, and because it is paper. If it is a fabric we are using now, it will definitely lay flat. So we have to use our hand to press it down and then pin. And then we cut. For those of us that are not going to close our darts, you can just notch any cut first. We've already added sewing allowance to this place on our pattern paper, so there is no need for us to add any allowance on the fabric again. The allowance is already on the paper. It is only here on our waistline that the allowance is not added. That is why allowance is added here. For those of us that are not closing our dart, let's say our dart is still here, on that place where our 2 dart legs are, you just notch on the 2 sides, just notch. Then for those of us that close our dart this way, there's no need to do any notching. The dart has already been closed and it has already been put on the fabric that way. You just notch the center, then this, and then on the M line, notch here where that fold is going to be for the hem. That is that for the front. So for the back, also for the back, we are also going to add 2 inches to the hemline here. Pin down. We also try and lay it flat as possible as we can. So now we're going to add allowance on our waist, just like we are going to add half-inch allowance, just like we added for the front. And then on this center back, we did not put allowance for the lining on the center back, we only added on the sides. So now we are going to now consider the line, because you know our black is going to be slit open, it's going to be cut open there, our center back. So we add half-inch allowance. It is to this half-inch that we are going to join our lining. On this side, we are not adding any allowance. The allowance is already added to the pattern paper. And then on this side, the center back, to indicate that that place is where our zipper is going to be, and that is also the center back. We now notch. So that's that. The next thing is to cut our lining. To now cut our lining, because this fold is going to be there, we are not going to cut our lining the same way, the same size as our fabric. We have to consider this fold. So what do we now do? We fold our fabric this way, we fold it this way, and then we fold it half-inch. We fold it half-inch this way. Hope you can see me, we see it well. See, we're not going to fold it completely here, we leave half-inch. So it's on that half-inch that we now fold, and then you can pin down to. So this is the size of the lining we are cutting. So we are going to cut. Also notch the center. For our back now, I'm trying to manage my lining. So we do the same thing we did at the hem of the front. We do it to the back. We fold exactly where this paper stops. That's where we fold the 2 inches that we added for the hem, and then we leave half-inch at the edge of the hem, and then we fold again and we pin down. can decide to use weights in the pattern so that it does not move. You can put weights on it so that it doesn't move, and then you cut. Then we also notch the lining, the center of the lining, the same way we notch the center of the fabric. So we are done with cutting our fabric.